Good. So it is 6 o'clock on Friday, February 4th, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. And this is a reconvening of the January 31st, 2022 regular meeting, which was adjourned prior to completing the agenda. Boards of education and other bodies may adjourn meetings at any time and for any reason, so long as Open Meetings Act regulations regarding notice and posting are followed when reconvening. This meeting is being conducted virtually, as it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not prudent given the disruption at the January 31st, 2022 in-person meeting caused by individuals unwilling to follow the rules imposed by the school board in compliance with the disaster declaration and mandates issued by the governor of the state of Illinois. The current mandate requires that all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to pre-K-12 schools wear a mask while indoors, regardless of vaccination status. There are no exceptions for meetings. In previous board action, the board voted to follow the guidance set forth by the governor, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Illinois State Board of Education, and we continue to do so. We would like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. The board completed agenda items E through H at the January 31st, 2022 meeting, and will commence this meeting with agenda item I, which is the consent agenda. And a note to all board members, on advice from our attorney, all virtual meetings, all votes taken need to be roll calls. So even when we adjourn or do things that we normally do by a voice vote, we will be doing those with a roll call. So that being said, would everyone please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's always awkward, virtually. And a roll call, please, when you're ready.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Dr. Lawler.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky. No. Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Junk and Mr. Mankivsky are absent.
So with 5 members present, we do have a quorum. So commencing the agenda on item I, the consent agenda contains the following action items this evening: the approval of accounts payable and payroll from January 2022, the approval of minutes of the January 10th, 2022 regular meeting, the approval of resignations, terminations, and employment of staff, the approval of a motion to not release executive session minutes from July through December 2021, the approval of administration to begin preparation of the 2022-2023 budget, and the following informational items: the Student Suspension Data Report, the Freedom of Information Act or FOIA report, the Employee Position Report, and field trip notifications. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Ryan.
Second, Jennifer.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on to new business now, and the first item under new business is the update of summer projects and the approval of one revision.
Yes, thank you. I'll turn that over to Dr. Fuchs, and as you can see, Mark Payton is also here in the meeting. So with that, Dr. Fuchs, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. This evening, I've asked Mr. Payton to come and join us to provide the board with an update of our summer projects. The board approved the summer projects at the November 29th meeting, and since that time, we've been busy preparing for those projects. We have run into a couple issues that we want to make the board aware of, and also Mr. Payton will explain one requested change with regard to the Harder Middle School elevator project. So at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Payton to give a brief update of the projects and then explain the change, the request.
Okay, in the board report, you have a table there listing the various approved projects. I'm going to skip over the first one and come back to that at the end. That's the elevator at Harder Middle School. Then we have a number of projects related to doors and windows that we were intending on doing this year. With all the supply chain issues that everybody I'm sure is aware of, lead times are getting crazy on everything, including doors and windows. So for those projects, we still intend to go forward. We're going to be bidding those as planned, and we're going to put on those a due date that puts those projects to be completed before school starts. But it seems like it's going to be a significant challenge for us to do that. So we have asked the architect to put in a alternate in the bid in case we need to use premium time to get that work done, meaning overtime, weekends, evenings, things like that for the contractor. So we can decide when we get the bids if we want to move forward based on that alternate and if that alternate is going to be necessary. The next item would be the auditorium dimmer rack. We've had a lot of good discussions with the high school regarding their needs and the engineering company that's working on that project. That's moving along nicely. When we planned that project, I believe we mentioned that that one would not be completed over the summer just because of lead times for those components. But I think we've worked out a good situation with the administration and the auditorium manager at the high school, where we're going to be able to get that done kind of in a down window, and they're going to adjust their scheduling throughout the year to make sure that they can accommodate the construction work to get that project completed. Parking lot patching, seal coating, and replacement should be done over the summer without much issue. We've had the engineering company do cores in the parking lots, and they said that we have a good sub base for the one at John Stewart Elementary, so it should not be any issue there. Everything looks like it's progressing fine there. And then a couple of smaller items at the end of that list. Back to the elevator for Harder Middle School. Again, we're running into lead time issues on getting an elevator. It would put installation of the elevator after the start of school in the fall of 2022. And that just doesn't seem feasible. In that case, there would be major construction going on right outside of classrooms in the 7th and 8th grade wings. We didn't think that would be good for anybody. So myself and the administration at Harder Middle School started trying to brainstorm what can we do. And we came up with, instead of installing a elevator, go with a vertical platform lift, which I know if you've been in elementary schools, you've seen those kind of lifts on the stage. So it would be a similar lift to that. Rather than a full-blown elevator, it would be switched over to this vertical platform lift. And then I list some of the, benefits to that on your board report there. One thing is student safety. In this case, it would be beneficial actually to have a vertical platform lift rather than an elevator, due to the fact that, you can get battery backups on elevators, but they're extremely expensive. In this case, that's how this system would operate a number of times in the event of a power outage. And they're just built that way. So it would not be an additional expense to the elevator. That would be nice. Also, we have a situation where if there's a fire alarm, elevator locks itself out in the event of a fire alarm, where this vertical platform lift would not do that. So we could get students down from the second floor with this device rather than an elevator. Also, the lead time right now on one of those vertical platform lifts is about 5 weeks, according to our architect, which is much better than the 16+ week lead time for an elevator. So that would be a benefit. We could get this done over the summer rather than in the middle of the school year. And then cost, vertical platform lift is significantly less money than a elevator. So that's also a benefit. It would help us stay on budget overall for the summer projects. So that is my brief update. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from board members? I'm not seeing any none. Okay, so seeing none, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education directs the administration to purchase a vertical platform lift as opposed to the installation of a new elevator at Harder Middle School as a part of the summer 2022 capital projects. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second Ryan.
And a roll call when you're ready, please.
Absolutely. Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on now to J2, which is the approval of the school bus purchase.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
First of all, thank you, Mark Payton, for being here tonight. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, with regard to the school bus purchases, this is an annual approval that we do. I've included in your board report the list of the current fleet. We have 62 buses with 2 activity buses. 4 of the buses are the smaller yellow ones. On the page behind the entire list, I've given you the list of buses with the 10 highest mileage and the 10 oldest buses. On the last page, I've given you the list of recommended trades. The one thing that is different this year than previous years, we are asking to trade 7 buses, but only purchase 5. Our director of transportation, Mrs. Smith, and I, and the head mechanic believe that it would be okay to slightly reduce the size of the fleet. There's 2 reasons for that. One is our enrollment has decreased since the peak. And secondly, we're having difficulties, as you know, finding drivers. So we don't want buses sitting around. Additionally, these other 2 buses that would be traded in would require repairs. And so we feel like it's probably in our best interest to go ahead and get them off the lot. We would continue to purchase 1-year-old buses from Midwest Transit. These are 1-year-old buses that other school districts have used, and they trade their buses every year. We buy them, and then they last for a good 10 to 12 years and have served us very well. Basically, I think, let me just give you the finances. So the 5 buses would cost $448,490. We would have trade value of $16,005. That's for 7 buses. And our total net cost is $431,990. That money is included or was included in my 5-year projection model. And so the projections at this time haven't changed because that was included in it. Thank you.
Board member questions?
I had a question. What's the useful life of the buses?
We usually get 10 to 12 years.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. It's just about clarification. You said our enrollment has decreased since the peak. Can you just explain what peak you mean?
Our enrollment peaked in about 2007 or 8. We had 8 or 9 years of decline, and this is actually the first year that our enrollment went up slightly in the past 10 years.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, let me get to the right page here. So I'll entertain a motion that the board directs the administration to move forward with the purchase of 5 one-year-old replacement school buses in the amount of $448,490 minus the trade-in value of $16,500 for 7 trade-ins with a total cost of $431,990 to be delivered after July 1st, 2022.
So moved. This is Aaron.
Second, this is Jennifer.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. So we do have new business items J3 and J4, which are discussions and presentations that I think lend themselves better to an in-person meeting. So at this time, I move that we move the items J3 and J4, table those to another meeting that is held in person. Is there a second to do that?
Second, Adam Gonzalez.
And a roll call, please.
Wait, discussion isn't.
Oh, yeah, you can discuss it. Yep, sorry.
No problem. Update, J4, when is it going to be back?
Both of those topics will be at the February 14th meeting. We're just moving them off of this meeting to our next in-person meeting.
Fair enough, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. I'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll now move on to item K, which is the superintendent and board report. Dr. Layden?
Yes, thank you. I have 3 or 4 reports that I would like to share and updates I provide. The first one is part of the consent agenda tonight. As the board approved that, they also approved as part of that Mr. James Horn, who is going to be our new principal at Kaneland High School, replacing Mrs. Maris. So we'd like to again thank Mrs. Maris for her years of service and dedication to Kaneland, and to officially welcome Mr. James Horn as the new principal at Kaneland High School. We will be bringing or inviting Mr. Horn to come to the February 14th meeting to formally be introduced and meet the board and introduce himself to the community. So we'd like to welcome Mr. Horn along with our other staff members that have been hired in the personnel report. Next item, update on CAC from the last CAC meeting. The topics that were covered were the handbook, capital projects, and summer school. One thing I do want to share, though, is 2 years ago, our CAC group had probably 14 to 16, as many as 20 people attend at times. I think as we move to virtual, as we move through COVID, those numbers have waned a little bit and moved into single digits, fewer than 10 on a number of times, and I think as low as 4 or 5 at the last meeting. So likely going to do a survey leading into the next couple of weeks of our CAC members, just to see if it's the format or is it the topics, just try to get an indication of what might be leading to the declining attendance and see if we can remedy that and make sure that we have at least 15 people at most meetings. That makes it more productive for our meetings and to get the necessary feedback. As far as meetings, our next foundation meeting is next Tuesday, February 8th. It's one of the regularly scheduled meetings. We'll talk about summer planning, talk about potential grants for staff, and then also a review of the fundraiser, which is tomorrow night, which is the first annual trivia night that will be hosted. A couple other updates. Weekly from the Kane County Health Department. First of all, our internal metrics as we send out the daily update on cases, just over the last 2 or 3 weeks, our reduction, a great reduction actually, great number of reduction in the number of student absences and staff absences over the past week. We're down to below 2% of our students being absent, which is roughly 10, 12 a day, even fewer than 10 on a number of those, and for staff, only 5 or 6 per day. And if you recall, the first day back from the holiday break, we had as many as 170 students out and 40 staff members. So that is very helpful, helps keep our students in attendance and our staff in attendance. So that has been good to see that reduction. One other item that we're asking for through the Kane County Health Department on our weekly meeting, as the cases are starting to decline and some of the conversation is starting to move and pick up countywide and statewide, we're trying to encourage the Kane County Health Department to see what we can learn in regard to next steps of any reduction of the layered mitigations that we have in place. I know they're talking about it as a Illinois Department of Public Health, but we're just trying to advocate for learning if they are going to have metrics, what those metrics might be, and what that impact would be for Kaneland as soon as possible, so that way we can begin our conversation. We can look at what that might mean for Kaneland as we move forward, following any updated guidance that they have as far as removal of any of our layers of mitigation. Let me look at one other sheet. Those are the updates that I have. Thank you. And I know that Dr. Fuchs has 3 or 4 also.
Great, thank you very much. My first update is to let you know that the KHS facilities survey has been completed. Dr. Layden, Mrs. Maris, and myself have reviewed the results, and we have invited E.O. Sullivan to come and present those results to the board at the February 28th meeting. At that meeting, you'll receive the results. You'll be able to ask the consultants questions. And then if you would like, you could make a motion at that time to either continue moving forward or ask for further information, depending on the board's reaction to the results. We feel very positively about the number of results, and I'm not going to steal any more thunder from E.O. Sullivan, but we'll have them here next meeting. Actually, not the next meeting, 2 meetings, February 28th. I apologize for that. So E.O. Sullivan will be here at the February 28th. That's in 2 meetings. The next item that I wanted to share, I believe I've mentioned this earlier in the year, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because it's becoming to a level where it needs to be. The Kaneland Employee Benefit Trust Fund, KEBTF, that's the money that every payroll is set aside from the employees and from the district to pay for health insurance premiums. The fund balance in that fund has become unacceptably low. It's down to about $1.1 million. Best practice suggests that we keep 3 to 4 months in the fund balance. At our current spending of claims, it's around $865,000 per month. We should have between 2.6 and $3.5 million in the fund. With the fund being only at about 1.1 million, we will be talking about this at our upcoming meeting this week at the Health Insurance Committee. One of my suggestions or ideas is probably going to be a mid-year premium adjustment. In my entire tenure, we've not had to do that. In fact, this year when we set the premium rate, we had a wonderful renewal of a little over 1%. We increased the premiums 3% in an effort to increase the fund balance. But unfortunately, we continue to have a number of high claims that are depleting our fund balance. And so there may be some other suggestions out there, and we will review those with our brokers as well as with the insurance committee. But if we should have to bring a mid-year adjustment recommendation to the board, I wanted to give you a heads up. My next topic that I've been asked to share information about is the decision-making that goes into either a snow day or a cold day. Overarching goal. On days when we're not sure what the weather is going to be, whenever it is safe to have in-person school, our goal is to have school. So that's truly the mindset with which we go into decision making. Our weather reports recently have been fairly accurate, but the size of our district from north to south and east to west, 142 square miles, generally have varying degrees of weather-related impact. If there is a weather warning, more attention is given to that kind of a situation. When we make a snow day decision, we keep in mind certain criteria. Criteria such as, what is the quantity of snow that is predicted? What is the timing of that snow? And what is the wind speed predicted to be? Because we have to be careful of drifts. Questions that we discuss: can we safely have our school buses pick up students? What about our high school student drivers? Staff, can they get to school? Parking lots, can the contractor have the lots cleared in time for the students and staff to park? If we're not sure, we have staff that go out and drive roads around 4:30 a.m. We have to make a determination between 5 a.m. and 5:15 a.m. in order to cancel school. Sometimes the weather changes between the time we go out and the time the buses get on the road. Our first bus leaves the parking lot at 6:05. So it's quite early. With regard to cold days, our discussions begin when the weather or the real feel is predicted to be 30 degrees or below, minus 30. We also look at the time of the day when the temperature is predicted to be the lowest. We also look at the length of the time that the temperature will be sustained at minus 30 or below. We ask our parents to help us. We want to be sure that all students are dressed appropriately for the bus stop. We sometimes ask that they keep the students in a warm or safe place while waiting for the bus. And we always remind them that on those kinds of days, snow days or cold days, when we are in school, it's most likely that our buses will run late, up to probably 10 to 15 minutes, which is why we need the parents to help make sure the students are safe at the bus stops. Ultimately, on any given day, if a parent does not believe it is safe for their student to attend school, they may keep them home or drop the students off later in the morning at school. Kaneland does not operate a late start schedule, just like we don't have half-day institutes or SIP schedules. There are several reasons for this decision that include but are not limited to the following. One, it is difficult to communicate to all students. We do not want to have students at a bus stop that didn't know there was going to be a late start. Our district is over 140 square miles, and so the buses would need to leave by 8 a.m. to get all of the students to school by 10 a.m. Students would have only approximately 4 or 5 hours that school day, and all of the schedules at the middle school and high school would need to be adjusted. We would probably need to cancel AM kindergarten, and all students would still need to be provided with lunch and recess. We believe that the educational value on a late start day does not warrant the adjustments to the logistics given the size of our district. One other thing that we keep in mind why we don't do a late start are traffic patterns. While it may seem odd, but cars that are not used to school buses being in their neighborhood at different times of the day than first thing in the morning, they may not be paying as close of attention as in the morning when people are used to school buses. Similarly, students are at the bus stops later in the morning where people, when they're backing out of their driveways, may not be expecting students to be there, and we would hate for an unexpected accident. We use a variety of resources when making these decisions. The superintendent and I are talking both in the evening before and early in the morning, the day of a possible snow or a cold day. We generally communicate with the Director of Transportation, the Director of Buildings and Grounds, the Kane County Department of Transportation, the Kane County Sheriff's Office through our school resource officer, and also Dr. Layden will regularly communicate with other school districts around us to determine if they are holding school or not. Not one of these resources or criteria is a sole determining factor, but all of this information combined helps us to make the best decision possible. We do know that we've had a couple close calls this school year, and we have selected to stay in school. At this time, we're very thankful that we haven't had any bus accidents as it relates to those close call days. We will continue to make the best decisions possible, given the information that we can gather very early in the morning to do so. Dr. Layden?
Real quick, just as a matter of order, at 6:30, Mr. Mankivsky joined the meeting.
Thank you. I do have one other topic. I wanted to share with the board a quick update on the ESSER funds. If you'll remember, the state and federal government gave us 3 rounds of ESSER dollars to support COVID expenditures and learning loss. Last year, we used our ESSER 1 money and received $153,972. The majority of last year's money was spent for PPE and cleaning. The administration, we have finally got our ESSER plan for ESSER 2 ready to be submitted. We hope to receive the money within a couple months. we expect $519,069. Again, it's primarily used for PPE, cleaning, test to stay staff. And then in next year's budget, we anticipate applying for ESSER 3. ESSER 3 will be in the amount of $1,165,193. For ESSER 3, we are required to have a public hearing and present it at a board meeting. So this summer, you will learn more about ESSER 3. Other than those dollars, the district has not received any money. We do not receive any money for shield testing. Shield testing is provided by the state of Illinois through a grant through the University of Illinois that they've received. I believe that that's all of my updates for tonight. Thank you.
Dr. Fuchs?
Yes, sir.
So there's a rumor floating around the community that we get paid by the states to something to do with masks, but we don't get any money from the state of Illinois to do anything with masking or anything along those lines. Is that correct?
We submit reimbursements for any masks that we purchase through these ESSER dollars. But other than that, no, there's no additional money besides this ESSER money. And that is the purpose, to help offset costs specifically related to COVID.
So we're not getting paid by the state to enforce a mask mandate?
No.
Thank you.
President Witt, I do have one other topic, if you don't mind, before we move on.
Sure.
Wanted to give an update on REV, our equity audit. As I shared earlier in January, we had planned for the second week in January to meet administratively, have our representative from CEC come out and provide update on the surveys and the focus groups. But unfortunately, as that was the second week back to school, we ended up having multiple teachers, multiple administrators have to be in present and have to substitute teach. And we would not have had our full team together. So unfortunately, we're going to continue the process, but unfortunately we had to cancel in January. So the next time we're going to meet to discuss that topic is March 9th or March 8th on the Wednesday, or March 9th on Wednesday. Had the administrative team do the same thing that we were going to do from January. We just had to move it due to the large number of absences of staff that second week back to school. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other updates from board members? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to topics for future agendas. Are there board members that would like to add something to the topics for future agendas list? It's not really a list, it's a... Okay. I don't hear any, so I will move on. This is the one time for public comment at tonight's meeting. And the comments are going to be read by Dr. Layden and Dr. Fuchs. But I would like to read at least part of our normal spiel that we read, which is that the board values public input to inform our decision making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education and are required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. For that reason, the board does not enter into a debate or respond to questions without proper investigation and deliberation. In most cases, concerns or questions are referred to the superintendent. Because tonight's Board of Education meeting is being held virtually, as I mentioned, Dr. Fuchs and Dr. Layden will be reading the comments. Those wishing to comment were instructed to email Dr. Layden, the superintendent, by today at 3 o'clock. Due to the early adjournment of Monday's Board of Education meeting, Dr. Todd Layden contacted anyone who had signed up for public comment and did not get the opportunity to speak, and asked them if they would like to submit their comments by email. And Dr. Layden will read those public comments prior to any new submissions allowed. We still have a 30-minute time limit, so we are starting now at 6:40. And Dr. Layden, if you'll please start the public comments.
Yes, thank you. The first public comment that I have that was submitted was from Katie Maxwell. And it's January 3rd. Our students came back from Christmas break to this prison, sitting on snow and ice-covered seats, pictures attached, as bus windows were open. It didn't matter that it was in single digits because the CDC, IDPH, and the Kane County Health Department recommend they remain open for airflow and to stop spread. January 7th. It was so cold that several buses were unable to start and yet not cold enough to shut the windows. Sunday the 9th, an email stated the transportation issue was fixed, but with cold temperatures forecasted over the next 2 days, dress your kids warmly. January 23rd, another email that was due to cold weather, the bus windows would be shut for the next 2 days. So let me get this straight. COVID stopped riding the buses with our kids when it's in the negatives, but COVID is a passenger when it's in single digits. It's ridiculous. And also, if the masks work, why do the windows need to be open? Would you let your parents or grandparent ride a bus in these conditions? Would you ride one? If you think it is okay, I ask you to check your moral compass because it's way off. You are damaging our children mentally and physically, and we are fighting to stop it. I suggest that instead of budgeting or investing in the Wi-Fi on the buses and tracking for computers, you budget or invest in heated seats until this foolishness ends. It has been well over 700 days. By now, we have all been exposed. I beg you to stop living in fear. Let our kids be kids. It was brought to my attention that you have a team of teachers or staff to meet daily to discuss mask issues. You even have signs posted for mask issues, a verbal warning, student conference, parent contact, officer referral. My son never got a verbal warning, never had a student conference either. Instead, I received a phone call and he was told his mask was not within the guidelines. My son's mask was a 2-layered mask. I went round and round explaining this with another party, to which I was informed that cloth masks or 2-layered, not mesh. Again, my son's was 2-layered. I then posed the question, if you are close enough to any child to determine the material of a mask is made, then are you not following the social distancing guidelines? I was told my concerns were unwarranted. So basically, I was being dismissed. Circling back to my guidelines you hold so dear, on the 17th, we received another email with updated guidelines. It stated that vaccinated students and not boosted staff members who are close contacts are required to quarantine for 5 days, among other things. Nowhere in the email did it state that a symptom-free student with close contact must isolate and eat in a team room for additional 5 days.
That's time.
Thank you.
The next public comment is from Jessica Kaneland. Please accept this email as my public comment, which I intended to give on Monday evening before the meeting was adjourned mid-public comment. Please allow this to be read. It's been almost 2 years of our kids being forced to wear masks every day to school, masks that do not work. We know they do not work because COVID is still here 2 years later, despite these mitigations. There have been numerous articles and studies released that discuss the inefficiency of masking and also the damaging effects that masks are having on children who are forced to wear them daily. My 6-year-old son has never gone to school without a mask on. He has never been able to see the faces of his teachers and friends because his entire school career so far has been masked. This is not okay with me. At what point will the Board of Education start questioning these mandates and consider that almost every other state in the country is not requiring masks to the extent that Illinois is? How is it possible that so many other states have ditched masks long ago, including in schools, and their children are in school in person and thriving? If these other states can drop the mask mandate long ago, why can't Illinois? Does anyone on this board realize that masking has become political? so that Illinois is one of the last few liberal states to require masking. Our children have become political pawns. Unless, of course, Illinois has some special kind of COVID that only New York and California have as well. Ms. Junk chose to adjourn a meeting mid-public comment on Monday for what she deemed to be improper mask wearing. Talk about 5 minutes of power going to someone's head. Is Ms. Junk going to shut down the schools too, since the adults and John Shields were photographed unmasked in the recent school newsletter sent to parents on 1/17/22, photos attached? Is it common practice for someone who is speaking? It is common practice for someone who is speaking at a podium to be able to take off their mask. Maybe pay attention to government meetings everywhere, including at the state level, where this is done on a daily basis, which is further evidence that it is difficult to speak and be heard while wearing a mask. Instead of injecting her own personal feelings and beliefs about masking to the public meeting, Ms. Junk and the board should have paid attention to and respected the concern of the parents who came to the meeting. After all, it is the parents who elected her and the board into office.
That's time.
Dear members of the board and administration, my name is Kristen Kinsella. I live in Elburn and have 3 children in the district. I spoke at the January 10th board meeting in addition to emailing board and administration, inquiring about the district practice of discriminating against unvaccinated students through exclusion. As I stated in my previous comments, we know with 100% certainty that both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals can contract and spread COVID. Data has also shown there is little to no evidence in the shed factor for the vaccinated and unvaccinated. However, even with this data and information, the district continues to exclude only the unvaccinated students when they are considered a close contact, even though they may have been exposed by a vaccinated student, as it was with my daughter. This is complete discrimination. My husband and I are vaccinated. We have 3 children, 6, 10, and 12. They are not vaccinated and likely will not be because healthy children, they are at a lower risk from the virus than those that are fully vaccinated adult. The amount of pressure society has put in place to force vaccination of healthy children is disturbing. It is criminal that my children do not have the same freedoms and rights as my husband and I because they are unvaccinated. While the vaccines do mitigate the severity of symptoms, at least for a time, they do not show evidence of significantly lowering the risk of getting or spreading COVID, and certainly not enough to merit requiring them to be full participant in society or school. Diet and exercise would be a far better indicator of risk level than vaccination status. Are we going to exclude people with a high BMI from school or exclude people with pre-existing health conditions? I have not received any responses to my communication that provided any clarification as to why the district would support such practice other than some other organization told us to, or it's out of our hands. Actually, it's in your hands. The board and administration have the power and ability to collect and look at data in order to make informed and logical decisions rather than blindly follow what orders you have to do. One board member even replied to my email saying, I don't have all the info in the new rules. How embarrassing and sad. This is not a new practice and it has been in place since the start of the 2021-2022 school year. As a board member, it is your responsibility to be aware of the policies that are in place, especially those that exclude children from school. You should be able to have educated conversations and answer questions about the data supporting the efficacy of the policies with all stakeholders. If you do not have the data or knowledge to answer the questions or engage in conversation, you should be seeking out the information and asking the administration to share more data.
That's time.
Hello, my name is Erin Hope. I live in Elburn and have 2 children in the district. I am writing to you today regarding a few current concerns that I have. Number one, the 90-day exclusion rule post-COVID. My 6-year-old recently had COVID and was out of school for the 5-day quarantine period. I was actually happy to hear about the current policy that stated that she could be exempt from future quarantines caused by close contact for 90 days due to the fact that she already had the virus. However, I was then informed that the positive at-home test she took would not be accepted and that I would need to take her elsewhere for a lab test. I do not understand why a positive at-home test is not acceptable, especially when Kaneland is using at-home buy next now tests for test to stay. By the time I could get my daughter an appointment for a PCR test, she was already testing negative and now cannot be included on the 90-day exclusion list. Our physician's office is even asking patients to just stay home if they are ill with COVID symptoms unless they truly need medical attention. It seems silly to force parents to bring their children in for another test, especially if we already know they have the virus and should just be staying home. I am asking you to please reconsider changing this policy to include positive at-home tests as well as for the 90-day quarantine exclusion list. Number two, quarantine rules. Why don't vaccinated students need to quarantine? They can still spread and get COVID just like the unvaccinated. If you are going to mandate close contact quarantines, it should be for all Kaneland students, not just the unvaccinated. The same goes for the segregation at lunch for days 6 through 10 after COVID or exposure. It makes absolutely no sense for vaccinated students to be treated differently when they can contract and spread COVID as well. Or better yet, let's just get rid of all this segregation and discrimination and let our children go back to a normal school environment. Number three, communication. Finally, I am another parent here to stress again that communication between the board and parents is severely lacking. Many of us keep emailing and making our comments at meetings, but really are not getting any answers. The emails that I have sent to the board have been replied to with a generic copy and paste response from just one board member. I really would appreciate answers, discussions, and hearing the opinion of more than just one of the people making these decisions.
That's time.
My name is Alex Malowska, and I am an alum of Kaneland High School. To the Kaneland High School District Board of Education, as an alum, you make me ashamed to have been a graduate of this place. You're lucky I'm out of the district. I would be at every meeting of the Board of Education to share my disgust and my anger with your dictatorial policies. I can't believe what you have become, shaming parents and students for speaking up as the new normal for you and to get off on this power trip. Shame on every single one of you board members, including administration. If I was still in the district, I would fight these mandates with staff daily. Enough is enough. Each and every single one of you should no longer serve as a member on this board. Luckily, we vote you in and we will vote you out. In regard to recent events at January 31st meeting, you are all cowards for adjourning the meeting over the masks not being worn, even when the people speaking around you aren't. It just shows that you would rather think of yourselves and not of those that you serve. The motto for the school district is proud to be a knight. I say unequivocally, I am not proud to have been a knight because of the turn of leadership has gone downhill. Has gone downhill since I graduated. I appreciate your time. I look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you, Alex Malowska.
The next message is from Matt Delgado. Good evening, Dr. Layden, members of the board, and fellow parents. I want to start by thanking the principals, teachers, and support staff for all they're doing during this pandemic and school year. I'm thankful that they have allowed our students the opportunity to continue in-person learning. All of 2020, my wife and I had to hear, if you're concerned about COVID, keep your kid remote or homeschool them. However, that is not the answer, as all children deserve in-person learning, and we have an easy solution to that: masking. I have visited my daughter's classroom this year, and I did not hear one kid complain about masking. In fact, most of the kids wanted to show off what type of mask they had on. Our children are not the problem when it comes to masking. We are. If we complain about having to wear them, then they'll complain. If we continue negative behavior towards the teachers and administration, then they'll continue to imitate that behavior. The divided is not helping anyone. Why can't we just be happy that all kids are back to school in a classroom? Why must we keep talking about masking versus optional masking when we continue to see more and more variants which are affecting children popping up, and we know masking mitigates the risk? Aren't there more important matters we could be discussing at these meetings? I challenge you all to take a look at what this division is doing to our community and our children. Every one of the children deserves the same education, and if masking is what allows that to happen, great. See, we all have one thing in common. We all want what's best for our children. Some children who may be immune compromised or have other health issues such as cancer aren't protected like a child who is healthy, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated. Personally, that isn't fair that their parents have to pull the kids from school or work out a remote option because some of us just don't want our kids wearing masks. That's not fair at all, and nor is that acceptable. There's also kids with sensory issues who can't wear a mask and also rely on those around them to wear the masks. This masking goes beyond our individual opinions and allows all students to have the same in-person education. Lastly, I want to point out that masking versus optional masking can no way, shape, or form be compared to the schools in Afghanistan. Our children have the right to express their feelings, participate in after-school activities. They have access to technology, paper, pens, coloring books, etc. I was there twice. Teresa? Yep.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Shaw, and I have a daughter at John Shields. I do have a couple things I would like to address. One being the equity audit that we volunteered to participate in the third and fourth quarter last year. I did participate in this equity audit last year, and from my understanding, results were to be shared and posted January of 2022. Can you please confirm and communicate to all as to when those results will be posted? I was informed by the woman conducting the equity audit that you are not able to manipulate the data. Therefore, I am not sure as to why we have not seen those results. Secondly, I would like to address the newsletter from John Shields that was sent out January 17th, 2022, and postings that were made on the John Shields Facebook December 16th of 2021, December 17th of 2021 also. In the John Shields newsletter dated January 17th, 2022, you have a picture of our spelling bee participants in the hallway with their masks on, which you also have posted on the John Shields Facebook dated December 16th, 2021, picture reference below. This is the same newsletter that you have a picture of Mrs. Yagi, Dr. Layden, Mrs. McCoy, and 2 other staff members also in the hallway with no masks on. This picture was also posted on the John Shields Facebook on December 17th, 2021. Can you please explain to me why it is okay to not follow the governor's rules, IDPH, CDC, ISBE rules, and all the other rules and guidance you have to follow for our students, but you do not have to follow when taking a picture of school staff adults? It is great to recognize both accomplishments, well deserved to our students and Mrs. Yagi. However, do you see the hypocrisy in this? Can you now understand why so many parents, stakeholders, and students are beyond furious, upset, and angry? The do as I say, not as I do mentality is not going to work for us. Now maybe you can understand why so many parents are hurt and upset at the board meetings. We are not being heard, and it's apparent because you are because you have no problem taking off your mask when it comes to you. The irony is just outrageous. A board meeting is canceled because one person who is well over 6 feet from board members does not have their mask on, but yet school staff, adults can stand shoulder to shoulder inside the school building with their masks off. What hypocrisy.
My name is Crystal Adams, and I currently have, thank you. My name is Crystal Adams, and I currently have 2 students in school.
Dr. Fuchs?
Can we wait?
Yes.
Sure.
I just want to say that at 7 o'clock, Meg Junk joined the meeting, and we have about 9 minutes left on the public comment section. So I don't know if you want to restart the clock and restart the comment, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Crystal Adams, and I currently have 2 students in Kaneland schools, at least for now. I want to state that while I understand that the board's rules weren't followed at the meeting on Monday, I am disheartened that our school district as a whole is more concerned about following recommended but harmful guidelines than they are about actually educating our kids and doing what is ultimately in their best interest. It is once again apparent that the majority of our board members are more focused on their own personal gain and political beliefs than they are on our children. At the time of this email, it is Thursday afternoon, and no email or statement has been sent out regarding the absurd Uber incident mentioned at Monday's meeting. As a stakeholder and parent of a middle schooler, I demand answers now. Why was Uber called to pick up a student, and why in the world would any Kaneland staff member even consider releasing a minor to a stranger? Why haven't we heard anything from the district about this? I have seen the father of the student share the email from Harder Middle School on a public news page, so I am led to believe that this incident actually occurred in some form. This is child endangerment, and someone isn't doing their job. There should be consequences and assurances that something like this will never happen again. Our children are supposed to be safe at school. On another note, we have a board member who seems to disregard the board member code of conduct. Aaron Lawler seems to enjoy the limelight of writing newspaper articles and posting on political and pro-mask social media pages. He seemed to have privileged information that he shared publicly with a specific group of people regarding the Uber incident, yet we still have no formal information from the district. Aside from his general disrespectful attitude and disregard for his constituents, he is not abiding by the following codes. Number 1, I will represent all school district constituents honestly and equally and refuse to surrender my responsibilities to special interest or partisan political groups. Number 2, I will avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety which could result from my position, and will not use my board membership for personal gain or publicity. Number 3, I will take no private action that might compromise the board or administration and will respect the confidentiality of privileged information. For these reasons, I ask Aaron Lawler to resign his position on the school board. Now I would like to discuss our children. You know, the little humans that your job is supposed to be solely focused on, the innocent beings who are being destroyed by senseless mandates, shamed, bullied, discriminated against, segregated, led to believe their own bodies are not strong and capable.
That's time. Dr. Layden, do you have the next one?
Is he frozen?
I think he's frozen.
I got it.
Okay.
Members of the board and administration, I would like to discuss, this one is from Chris Bateman. Members of the board and administration, I would like to discuss what happened at the January 31 school board meeting. As I have said before, I appreciate that the board has stated that they would follow the guidelines, and thus far you have, even if that meant adjourning the meeting early this past Monday. Having said that, I hope that you truly heard what the parents that had an opportunity to speak said. There are problems in this district that need to be discussed and addressed. There are things that you can do to make things better if only you would. This is what I took away from the meeting. 1, families are worried about the safety of their children. 2, parents are concerned about the coursework their students are bringing home. 3, families are pulling their children from the district. 4, kids are more worried more about their masks than anything else because they are afraid of being called out or segregated from their friends. 5, standard-based grading is not working the way it's supposed to. Parents, teachers, students, the ones doing it say it isn't working. 6, administrators are telling parents to stop asking questions. 7, kids are missing large chunks of valuable school time because they were too close to someone with COVID while they remain healthy. 8, board members and administrators do not seem to be on the same page with what processes and policies are in place and how those are actually being implemented. Please hear what is being said. These are not concerns about whether or not we are wearing masks. Ms. Junk and other board members of the board made it about mask wearing. These are concerns about policies and practices that are taking place in the district that you are supposed to represent. I can only speak for myself, but right now I am embarrassed to be a part of this school district. I have reached out to each and every one of you. I have offered help. I have requested help. I have offered to have a discussion. I have requested discussions. I have begged, pleaded, yelled, cried, you name it, but nothing seems to get through. But I am not going to give up. My focus has been and always will be on the kids. I hope you can say the same. More concerned than ever, Chris Bateman.
We have about 3 minutes left in the 30-minute time limit for public comment.
Dr. Layden, you're muted.
Uh-oh, he might be frozen now. No, he's not. Okay.
No. No. Okay. He appears to have some difficulty. I'll go ahead. This message is from Ashley Kleisner. Dear board members, our school board meeting occurring on January 31st, 2022 was my very first and last time attending. The last 3 years have been challenging for all of us. I have complied with the constant changes and mandates, even though I didn't agree. I didn't want my children to suffer because of my own personal views. I have a kindergartner at John Stewart, a middle schooler at Harder. Both of my children suffer from asthma, which has led me to keeping them home due to the masks restricting airflow. My 6-year-old son has severe asthma and is afraid to speak up to staff when he is struggling to breathe because he fears he will be in trouble. I believe the masks are prohibiting our children from speaking their minds and instead told to sit down, be quiet, and follow authority. My 8th grader daughter has now been contact traced twice in the last 2 months without any symptoms or options with test to stay during lunch, even though the zones that get dismissed for the cafeteria line is a jumbled mess. There is no social distancing as the students are leaning on each other during conversations at their tables, and the high school isn't tracing during lunch. How are we able to contact trace the students waiting in line for their lunches, regardless of assigned seating? My 8th grader has now missed a total of 20 days due to her vaccinated peers being sick. While my child was traced from this student, a student that sits on the bus with the COVID positive student was not found traced, since it is impossible for the bus driver to know exactly who is riding the bus on which days. This student who wasn't caught through tracing could have potentially been spreading COVID through the entire middle school the whole week while my daughter remained home following the guidelines. The masks are proven not to work. The vaccines do not keep children from becoming sick, and the mandates for tracing are impossible to track down every child through classrooms, lunch, hallway, buses, etc. All I would like to see are options. We are Americans, land of the free. Mask and vaccination status should be optional. There is no stopping this virus no matter what we do. Wear a mask or don't, get vaccinated or don't. We have the freedom of speech and choices. Please let our children be free in this corrupt world we live in. We are all aware of the laws being broken in our school system.
That's time. And that's actually the end of the 30-minute public comment section. Dr. Fuchs or Dr. Layden, could one of you confirm for me how many more public comments? There are 5?
Yep, there are 5 left.
5 additional.
Okay. Okay, so those public comments will be shared. If they were not shared with the full board, they will be by Dr. Layden, so that we all can read those. And then there will be 2 opportunities for public comment at our next board meeting on the 14th. So that concludes the public comment section for tonight. And we do have a closed session tonight to discuss collective negotiating matters under the Illinois Open Meetings Act, Section 2C2. We do not expect to have take action as a result of that closed session. So there will be since there's no action taken, therefore, after the vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Ryan.
Second, Meg.
And a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Motion